Sam, welcome. Welcome to the class. This is going to be recorded for EVNT-155 and 157. That's event planning and event marketing. Sam, why don't you tell everybody in the class about yourself a bit?
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Sam Fenlason. I am a director of partnerships and events for a company called FastSensor. We're an artificial intelligence and event measurement company. I'll go into more detail on what we do, but basically my job is to help event marketers and event planners measure their events to foot traffic to help make better design and justify their budgets moving forward. So yeah, great
Awesome.
great to be on.
Is there a particular size of event that you have a sweet spot for?
So our company actually is broad sweeping, goes anywhere from a deployment as small as a 10 by 10 booth for trade shows, all the way up to marketing for tracking entire convention centers and expos. So there's not a exact sweet spot, but we do cater to different products for different folks.
Awesome. Do you have a particular presentation, or should we just have a discussion, Sam?
I do have some demonstration slides. I have a case study that I'd like to go over. I can share my screen and we can go from there.
Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also show a live dashboard, and actually I think that's where I'm going to start if you don't mind me. From there we can move over to the demonstration slides.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. First and foremost, the company that I work for is called FastSensor. Once again, what we do is event technology, and we're a provider that uses artificial intelligence to overlay behavior patterns from foot traffic. So as you get into the event industry and grow your career, you're going to hear more and more about measurement and trying to justify budgets and doing what's right by your clients. If you work directly with a brand or with a marketing agency or an exhibit house, generally speaking, what you're trying to do is get as many folks into your booth, qualified leads at least, into your booth, and from there trying to get them to engage with your design, your customer journey that you've created. Part of that path is measurement. We do a system called Radio Frequency Trilateration. So the phones, the smartwatches, the headsets you have on are constantly putting out radio frequencies, and the technology that we use pulls in those, all globally privacy compliant, non-PII information. So we're not knowing that it's Sam walking into the booth or anything like that. We do know that there is somebody, and we aggregate the behavior there.
Yeah, is that what we're looking at on the screen here at now?
Yep.
Is foot traffic?
Yep. This is foot traffic happening at Samsung's booth in NRF from 2022. This is a live example of what's happening at a live trade show. Every hour we'll update this foot traffic. At 10 a.m., this is what most people looked like in the booth. This has an element of dwell time, so amount of time that people spend in the booth, as well as where they're congregating. So you'll see, if I were to say for the full day or for the full event, there's a lot of engagement happening in this middle section. This right half of the booth was more dedicated to meetings. Based on your strategy and the strategy of the brand that you represent, this is a good indicator that the left side of the booth was absolutely filled and packed. And then on the right-hand side, if you wanted to be more strategic, more displays, more demo stations, this was a good reflection of that specific strategy.
Then if I'm designing the booth or working on the booth for next year, or even planning where to station my staff around the booth, I could use all of this to confirm that my content on the left side is appealing to the broad audience, and that I've stationed enough folks there, that sort of application?
Yeah, absolutely. We like to sometimes say that we're an A/B testing apparatus, where you start to make small minor changes and one change at a time. As A/B testing is, you have two different ways, outputs that you can, or inputs that you can have, and it's going to reflect a change in behavior. So we change one thing at a time for most of our clients. We help them consultatively to, make those decisions. Where do we put the staff? All that kind of information.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Moving on from there, the other cool piece of technology that we do, and this is something that there's not really a whole lot of from a actual physical marketing standpoint. There is a lot of this happening with Amazon and with anywhere where you do digital marketing. You know where people are going click by click. When you have digital marketing for physical representation, it's a little bit harder unless you have a video camera physically pointing out where people go. And that's when we go back to GDPR compliance, to locate somebody over time, it's actually not compliant. So the technology that we use, because it is anonymous, we can see that 180 people entered the booth. 41 of them went over to the food and beverage zone. Obviously, Samsung has a food and beverage zone, and that's the most popular spot in the booth, right?
Yeah.
So we see that 41 people went through there, and 14% of those folks actually dropped off. So, or 14 people dropped off, which was 34% of the people that went to that specific zone. So as you go through this, you get to
Sam,
see.
let me slow you down just a little bit. So obviously, if you go back to the overall view, if you move to the left a little bit, so we can see here. If this was a website, we could see them clicking from one part of a website to another. But what we're looking at is the traffic within the booth and what parts of the booth people went to. So then that F&B, food and beverage zone, if you could click back on that, then we're seeing 66% of the people then went on to other parts of the booth. Am I correct there? And then
Correct.
As you said, 34% dropped off. There's no, the 34% drop off. Obviously, we don't have a line for that because they literally left the booth. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the 14 people, what happens here is we have 27 throughput to different zones, and we can tell you that 13 of those went over to the POS zone, things along those lines. And then if you're at the very bottom, we'll aggregate all of the interactions, whether they went to the next one. So on average, 62% of the attendees went on to a secondary zone, and then from there, 49, and so on and so forth. You can start to see what's getting the most attention out of the attendees and where you're getting high drop-off rates so that you can improve what you're doing with your booth.
And so we got merchandising zone, we got POS, is that point of sale?
Yep, correct.
And then what are the rest of those?
CMA, don't know exactly. These are codes that Samsung uses specifically for their retail environments. I'm assuming one is their mobile device, and then the other one is probably going to be their display. Because that's what the NRF is, the National Retail Federation, the big show, quote unquote. And they will bring out different groups to sell within the booth itself. So when I go down to this heat map here, you'll very commonly have event booths that have multiple verticals within Samsung. So the displays might be over here on the right-hand side, and then their mobile devices might be here at the bottom, and they might have a zone where they can purchase.
And obviously this is, I'm assuming, a fairly large booth, but
30 by 60, 30 feet by 60 feet. So there's a lot of area that you can cover. We track booths that are 100 by 110. We do large automakers. We do the LA Auto Show, New York Auto Show, Detroit, all those fun events. So you'll very commonly have 200 by 150 there, and you get to see cars, people sitting inside of cars with the heat map, that type of thing.
And then if I could ask a very technical question about sort of resolution, obviously to place people in the booth versus walking around it or at a nearby booth. And I'm just curious how that resolution, I assume you have, as you mentioned, triangulation. I assume you have different sensors placed around to try to pinpoint folks within the booth.
Yeah, absolutely. How the technology works is that we have these little Wi-Fi looking boxes here. It'll take in all of those devices. And when a staff member is inside of the booth, we'll actually exclude them as an outlier in our data set. So you're truly just getting attendee engagement, and you're understanding how this specifically is affecting attendees, not necessarily your booth staff. We can do booth staff behavior analysis if you ever wanted to know what your booth staff is doing for you as well.
Awesome. I'll let you proceed.
Yeah, no problems at all. Yeah, no. So this is what we like to call our connected customer journey. Very often our digital advertisers have an advantage, our physical event marketers. So we try to justify the budgets by saying we spent $100,000 on this specific activation. How do we justify how many people are looking at our event? We like to give our KPI. I like to call them our KPI alley here, where we get to see how long your brand is in line of sight for all the attendees at the event, how long they spend inside of the booth. And we break it down into even personas here. We'll say, how long does a visitor stay in your space? And it's 32% spent 3 to 6 minutes in there. And then you have very high engagement, 18% spent more than 46 minutes in your booth. So you get an idea of how engaging the activity is in. And this is an interesting one because based on your goals, you might want people to be in your booth for longer than 60 minutes, or you might want quicker interactions. You want your salespeople to turn and burn as many leads as you possibly can. So having folks in there for 46 minutes might be disadvantageous to you as an event marketer. It's
Right.
just
Yeah, that makes sense. I just want to parse through some of the text that's on the screen. In the upper left, we have how visible was your brand, and you're saying you had 193,000 impressions or non-unique people within 50 feet from your space. So that's saying people that are external to the booth, that are just walking by, seeing your signage. Is that the correct understanding?
Correct. And non-unique is an important note because in this case, it would be if I were to walk by the booth within 20 feet 4 times, I would be counted 4 times.
Which might happen at a trade show. You're walking around, you might walk by more than once. It's perfectly actually reality.
Yes, no, there's sometimes where we have, on average, we'll know exactly how many people are in the event. And there's sometimes where we'll see if every attendee were to walk by 20 times, just because the convention center might be so small.
Yeah, or they picked a really good booth, and that's kind of the central place to pass over from one part of the hall to another. And then we're saying in the middle section, how captivating is your event? So we have that 23.2 minute average visit duration, but we're also then having this 136,566 walk-bys, and then 401 qualified visitors in your space. And so how do we know that they were qualified? Is that based on the time spent?
Yeah. So if I actually go down here into this one, is what was your visitor profile? We use artificial intelligence to learn the behavior over the course of every day of the event. And based on the behavior from that, we'll cut it down into different categories where these are 2 different profiles or personas. One is an engager and one is a browser. An engager is showing purchasing intent. They're very engaged with your booth. A browser is anybody who meets a minimum criteria of dwell time, of visiting different zones within the booth that you've outlined, so that it gives you an idea of how many people you actually captivated and how many. I like to say that our FQVs, our FastSensor qualified visitors, or our engagers and browsers, should be very closely knit with an MQL, so to speak. If somebody is truly engaged with your booth and working face-to-face and did a demo, you should be approximately the same amount of lead captures for folks around that side.
And let me break that down. MQL, marketing qualified lead. If you're getting leads from a website or through some sales process that's originating from the marketing side of the business, after a certain point in time, after people have engaged and interacted with a product or a service enough times, then they're said to be marketing qualified. In other words, they're ready to start the sales process.
Correct. And your strategy to collect MQLs is going to be different. We do education here at FastSensor when you work with us on your different strategies in terms of lead capture, which is the very tippy top of the conversion funnel for live events. It gives you an idea of how many people walked in versus FastSensor qualified visitor has a time element as well as a engagement criteria. What we would consider a FastSensor qualified visitor or an engager would be that they spent 44 minutes in a booth, or they went to, let's say, the merchandising zone for 31 minutes, or they went to the CMA, the merchandising, the F&B, and the POS zone, and they spent at least in one of those zones, let's say the food and beverage zone, for 10 minutes. So this is going to change from event to event and actually day to day. As a fun anecdote, the LA Auto Show, we saw that there was a significant amount of rain, which caused flooding downtown LA. The mayor said not to travel that day, but some people ended up going to the event, and we saw higher engagement levels. People spent more time in the booths because there was nothing else to do. They were stuck there. So we saw the duration for a set of days that were higher engagement than the previous days, but lower amount of attendance during those times. So that's something that, generally speaking, unless you're on site or if you're tracking the weather pretty closely, you're not going to know about as an event marketer.
Yep, for sure. I want to just look at the middle box there, how visitors are trending over time. I think it's important to know that, right, every show is a little bit different. Some shows have a lot of speeches and presentations that people are attending, and then they're going to the trade floor, whereas some shows are just all trade booths, and there's no really any presentation going on except what's within the booth. And obviously that can affect where people spend time. If it's a Mac event and back in the day Steve Jobs was presenting, no one would be in a booth. Everybody would be out waiting to listen to Steve. But what I'm seeing here, the blue line, the visitors versus the walk by, that in the morning people spent a lot of time, but then around 10, 11, they were off either in another booth or maybe in another part of the event. But then as we got towards the end of the day, there were a lot less people. So by 5 o'clock, I'm assuming the show ended, it went to 0. But that spot between 3 and 5 p.m., you have a lot of visitors that were perhaps coming back to the booth or taking time to come in for the first time. And they really spent a bunch of people came back at the end of the day to perhaps have identified that they wanted to spend some time there and came back and spent that time.
Yeah. Generally speaking, in terms of what I've observed from looking at a lot of this data, the first day of the event, there's going to be a lot of people walking by. The only people that get a lot of qualified visitors are going to be the ones that are up front, in the middle, in the best areas of the show floor. So generally speaking, unless you have prime real estate, you're going to see a lot of people walking by your booth looking for content and looking for what they want to engage with during the course of the 1, 2, 3, 10 days of the event. And then towards the end of the day, you'll see higher qualified visitors because they've done their sessions, they've walked by, and now they're ready to engage with your booth. That's what I see very commonly. But there are some other events that they'll have consistent people walking by and walking into their booth. Yes. It's the same idea here too, is when did you have the most visitors? The deeper blue colors are going to indicate when you're having more visitors per day. If you have multiple weeks, we'll tell you on aggregate when the most amount of attendees are, so you can start to strategize next year, next week, or next day to boost staffing optimization, as well as when you should do your live demo times.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's mostly the dashboard. The last thing that I generally like to show off is the top of the funnel conversation. We have 5 metrics up here, but we have a 6th one that is not included on this dashboard. And I'll just go really quickly. Impressions we marked earlier, said 20 feet away from the booth. That is going to be the very tippy top in terms of people looking at brandage. Walk-bys is 5 to 10 feet away from the booth. So this is where you can start engaging people, pulling them into your trade show experience. And then we have a metric here that is missing called the walk-in. It does not have artificial intelligence filtering out behavior. It's just purely the number of people that are stepping foot on your carpet. So if you want to know a total addressable market, that one's going to probably be the closest to the number. Then FQV, we already discussed it. FastSensor qualified visitors. There's engagement criteria. It's a component of engagers and browsers. Engagers are those people that I highlighted, 44 minutes plus. Browsers are the ones who are coming in for the free tchotchke, maybe have a conversation 2 minutes with a salesperson and then leaving. Those type of people. Yep. And then we'll break it down into this funnel so that it's a nice little graphic to show your leadership team.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I actually think that this did a pretty good job of explaining what we do here at FastSensor. So I'll go actually towards the end of our demonstration slides just to give you a quick update. We did a case study with a company called Bell Helicopter, and they are very tech forward. They wanted to understand a lot of things. So we did a 3-year correlation case study with them. Their first year, they just wanted to understand product alignment. They wanted to correlate, behavior that was going on inside of the booth. Also wanted to benchmark their performance across all the shows because they went to approximately 80 that year.
Wow.
So you need to know budget along those lines, what we're spending on. The second year, they took, actually, if you had any questions about the first year, I'll let you.
No, I don't, because I was leading right where you're going, which is obviously they want to spend time to improve the design of the booth and really make sure the booth is maximizing the value.
Year two, they started to look at all the previous data. They made design decisions. They changed the way the layouts for specific booths, and then they started to combine their data sets and refine their portfolio. Should we go to event A versus event B? Event A had this number of people or attendees, but we had less lead captures. We started to consult with them on what these next steps should be. And I think that they got some really good return on investment from understanding behavior that was happening at the show. Their return on experience as well was really good too. We understood what their attendees were looking for more and more by looking at the heat map
Can you explain that return on experience?
Yeah, return on experience is a relatively newer term that sometimes event marketers don't necessarily have return on investment goals. They have a budget. They'll give you the lead capture number and they'll say, hey, as a deal or as a prospect goes through your conversion funnel from marketing over to sales, the sales will eventually close specific deals, and that's return on investment. We understand how much money has flowed through, how much we need to spend to capture one lead into a deal. Return on experience is an overarching idea that allows you the ability to put numbers towards the experiential part of your event. So as an example, one of our clients, Subaru, has a large theater zone that has a 100-foot screen across it, and it splits up. There's a log in the back, and a car pops out for a new activation for their new car release. So return on experience is we spent a lot of money there. We understand that there was a certain amount of engagement in that specific area, but what was the return on that experience? How many minutes of brand impression? How many minutes of this new activation? That theater getting compared to, they have a area that's filled with adoptable puppies, right? Return on experience. Which one did your attendees get more out of, the puppies or the theater? You're there for, obviously, to look at new cars from Subaru, but you also get the novelty of having the puppies and getting a relaxing break while you're looking at all these cars. So that's a return on experiences. I like to keep it loose, but you're creating an experience for your brand, for your attendees. What was the return on that?
That's awesome. And then you mentioned obviously combining the data sets so we could look at different experiences over different shows or different geographies and try to get a sense of what's working and where it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing about FastSensor is that it controls for a lot of those variables because we use artificial intelligence to help out with that. So the folks that were in Chicago for the Chicago Auto Show acted completely different from the folks that are in New York versus the folks that are in Los Angeles. So when you start combining data sets, you get to put your best foot forward for each geography, for each attendee. So you understand your target market and you can actually go more, I like to call it account-based marketing, which is like more specific information for the persona that you've created. But geography is a big part of that. But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then the last thing that we did was in year 3, they started to actually take a lot of those learnings and whittle down. They wanted to have cross alignment across all their shows. They wanted to maximize their budget. Obviously, there's some shows where you want to show up bigger and then other shows so you can have a smaller booth size. And if you have the right attendees at a specific show, your experience, you just want to maximize that experience for those people that will be more likely to purchase and to purchase at scale.
Thank you, Sam. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. That's everything that I wanted to share today. I'm open to any questions that you might have, but otherwise, that's everything I had.
I think that's great. Maybe you could just bring up your website while we talk for a few minutes, and then I think this will be a good place to stop the recording. But I thought everybody should get a look at your website.
Yeah, absolutely. So FastSensor is specifically built for 3 verticals. One is going to be...
You got to share.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Let me go ahead and share that. The one that I shared mostly today was fastsensor.com/events. And that's the one where we do event marketing. FastSensor is also a retail and industrial, or has industrial and retail environment tracking as well. So if you go into a grocery store, same idea for what you're doing in a trade show. I was specifically talking about booths today, but we also do this for convention centers as well. We like to keep things light, and we want to make sure that you get a good idea of what's happening inside of your booth. Yeah.
Oh, that is absolutely awesome. And I think it's good to end the recording here. I do have a few things I want to discuss after I hit the stop button. Sam, again, fantastic. This has been Professor Harry for Southwestern College, where we're talking about events. Sam, I'll leave you with the last word.
Thank you very much. Please feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. Our LinkedIn profile is FastSensor. You can connect with me personally at Samuel Fenlason on LinkedIn as well. Our website is a great place to reach us out as well. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to. Oh, email. If you wanted to email us, sales@fastsensor.us is a great place to reach me. Thank you, Harry.
Bye-bye, Sam.
Have a good one. Bye.